Romans chapter 9, the whole thing, read it, onliners, zoom in here. Read it, Romans 9. Because theologically and practically, it answers a lot of questions that people ask every day. Remember, the questions that you ask about God and etc. aren't new. This text will literally clear up for some the idea of, well, why does God, now it doesn't explicitly say that, the concept is there. Well, why does God let bad things happen to good people? This text, in the sense of theology, explains that. Why does God let babies die? The concept of this text gives up credence and precedence for that. It's saying that God, listen, because after all of this, Paul says, so then if God can harden hearts and God can cause wrath at his discretion, does that mean God is not good? Paraphrasing now, Paul says, no, that's not what that means. When you understand the sovereignty of God and his decisions, it's all about his glory and his power. And if he chose Jacob and Esau while they were in their mother's womb and never did good or bad, here's what Paul says. God's decisions ultimately have nothing to do with your work. So while you are working to be blessed, I just love God to be blessed. And I work because I love him. I don't work for the blessing. And if I don't work for the blessing, that means I also don't work for the mercy. That was a side note. Be patient, because God is doing something. Here's your last thing, and we out of here, because some of y'all going to start barbecuing on Sunday morning for Monday. I don't know why. They ain't going to do nothing but cook hot dogs and brats. You know, we in that generation now. I don't feel like cooking. Yeah. Here's your last thing. I want you to get this. It's real simple. The first thing was, because we worried about the wrong things. We worried about the wrong things. God chose you for the promise. Focus on you being chosen and live like a chosen person. The second thing, God's power was revealed during your patience. God is doing something. David said, I would have given up hope if I had not believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. There is something that happens when you wait on the Lord. As David says in Psalm 27, wait, I say on the Lord, be of good courage. There's something that's happening in your wait. There's something happening when you're crying. There's something happening when you keep your mind stayed on him. There's something happening. Here's your last thing about what Paul is trying to teach. Here's what I want you to get. Here's what I want you to get. It's real simple. Your last point is that if God gave you his best, what's the rest? And we going home, man, I promise. If God gave you his best, what's the rest? Hebrews 1:3 says the sun is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his nature, upholding all things by his powerful word. And after he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of his majesty on high. That if God gave you Jesus, why do you think he'll withhold the lesser? Philippians 1:6 says, be confident in this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Jesus Christ. And he says, be what? Confident in this, that he who began a good work in you, you were chosen. He who began a good work in you, just wait, in the due season you shall reap if you faint not. He says you were chosen. He says, be confident, because if God gave you his best, what's the rest? My father said to me, if I gave you $500, what's $25? If I gave you Jesus, who is the best of who I am, I gave you Jesus to save your soul. I gave you Jesus who came from me. I gave you Jesus who is me. I gave you Jesus, we are one. I gave you Jesus, the best of the Godhead, who decided to sacrifice his life and wrap himself in flesh, that he who knew no sin became sin for you and I. I gave gave you the best. What's the best? I wiped away your sins. I forgot them as far as the east is from the west. I forgave you when other people didn't forgive you. I'm the only God that has the power to forgive. And you crying about what you go eat. I'm here to tell somebody, you worried about the wrong thing. I ain't got no fancy clothes. I ain't got no funny story to tell you. I'm just here to tell you that if God gave you Jesus,